his pivotal work, Omnivore's Dilemma, A Natural History in 4 Meals, Michael Pollan traveled around the United States examining how we get food to our tables, how the food we've been eating today got to our tables. He examined 4 major food chains: the industrial food complex, the organic industrial complex, the post-organic food farming system, and of course, foraging. The last one is harder to do nowadays, but he found his way, digging dirt, nails clogged with gray as he searched for morels across California. As he was examining the post-organic system, he interviewed and spent some time working with the owner of Poly Farms Chicken, Joel Salatin. And I'm not going to go too much into how funny I find it is that it's called Poly Farms as I sit in front of all of you. But I found it fascinating that he was talking about the psychology of sustainable farming. Joel Salatin is an intrepid explorer of the world of food, and he was talking about how he looks at food and his land. He explained that he had 550 acres of land, 100 of which happens to be active farmland. Now, Michael Pollan, being a journalist, asked how much production he had in that 100 acres of land, and Joel stopped him. He said, no, this man who raises chickens, hogs, rabbits, cows, tomatoes, and sweet corn. He said, no, I have 550 acres of land, 100 of which happens to be active farmland. As he explained, he pointed out that in sustainable agriculture, the whole 550 acres is what matters. That when we have this extra land, it provides protections from the wind. It acts as a summer shade for his hogs. It gives a space for the voles and the rabbits to run, and in turn for the foxes to hunt, instead of eating his chickens. He was trying to explain to a city dweller that a farmer needs more than active farmland. If all we have is just the active farmland, it leads to dust across Oklahoma skylines. In the real complexities of nature, we need complexity. When I was reading Omnivore's Dilemma, I was taken in, examining not only what he was talking about with food supplies and chains and all of that, but I realized that he was talking about that when we don't work with the reality of what is present, with the whole of our given systems, that we have to constantly compensate. Industrial food growers dump truckload upon truckload of fertilizers onto the land to compensate, to build up supposed peak efficiency, NPK-based chemical fertilizers that wash downstream and have left large swaths of the Gulf of Mexico choked with algae. Sustainable farming is more than opening up a bag of NPK and dumping it onto the land. Every few days, a cow is moved from one area to another area to another area, and a few days after the cows are moved out of the way, the chickens are moved into place to peck the grubs out of the dung, to leave their own scat behind, and in turn for the cows to come back and crush it down into the soil, leaving it a richer place. Joel Salatin actually doesn't describe himself as a cow or a chicken or a tomato farmer. He describes himself as a grass farmer. Now, this all might seem like a lot of work, right? That we have to pay such big prices up front. But the reality is, when we're doing this kind of work, we are paying the cost up front. We are not waiting 20 years to see what the fallout will be from another bag of fertilizer washed downstream. Now, I'm sure a couple of you are wondering, well, what the hell, right? Organic farming, really? But it was fascinating to me as I read Omnivore's Dilemma. It hit me. It hit me square in the face, that clue by 4 from the universe. It hit me that I live in a complex ecosystem. I, you, me, we, all of us live in complex ecosystems of this beingness called life. Just as Joel Salatin's shade, his land gives him space for his active farmland to function, my connections to deity allow me to work actively and fully in the presence of my multiple loves. My polyamorous relationships provide me with the fuel to support my work as an author and an educator. My work as an author and an educator, in turn, help me touch the lives that inspire me to do activism and to work directly, one-on-one with individuals and changing all of this. My activism provides me space to actually connect with my biological family in new and interesting ways that I never thought of. And my ties to my family, they help me find hope and faith and help bring me back to that thing that I call divine. It's not a chain. We talk oftentimes in our communities about this chain, that this affects this. We are not a chain, we are a web. We are a complex ecosystem that brings together creativity and beauty in its fullest of capacity when we embrace all of it. And I realized as I was reading about organic farming that I live in a complex ecosystem of the heart. If I were only a hedonist and a sexual explorer, or if I were only a gender radical, or if I were only a believer in the fact that love is not a finite quantity to fight over, I would not be as rich of a creature as I am standing before you today. I am not one label. I am not one thing. I am so many things. I am a being living on the intersections. And you know what? They are all me. And yet, when I come to community after community, they ask me who I am. They want to know up front how much active farmland I have. When I open up my list of labels and identities, I share the complexities of my truth, and it goes beyond a few words. I often find that I'm not given time to answer these questions fully. I'm instead faced with, yeah, but are you a top or are you a bottom? Are you a man or are you a woman? How can they box me, one way or another, in the truth that matters most to them, in their current filter, in their current experience? But I proclaim that I am not 100 acres of active farmland. I am 550 acres of land, 100 of which I happen to stand before you with active in my heart. The whole of me is needed to meet you at the table with my greatness, because the sum of my parts is more than the value of slicing me apart and asking me to show you the broken or the hidden parts that you think you can understand. The price of it seems higher at first, I know. That we have to actually reach outside our comfort zones. We have to learn new terms and truths and ways of being and seeing, and see that no one on this planet, including those we think we know, whose stories we think we understand, simplified and distilled down into Red or Rush Limbaugh, we do not know their stories. They too are only showing you their active farmland. We do not know the shade and shadow.